You know, with that being said, you talked about the value of an agile coach, and I think a lot of organizations also get confused when it comes to agile, as you mentioned, and agile coaches with scrum masters. We now also hear scrum masters, right? Can you talk about, is an agile coach similar to a scrum master? And if not, what's the difference between those two?
Interesting question, and thank you for that, because that's very common misunderstanding that people have. They want to hire an agile coach who could be a scrum master or vice versa. What I'm going to say is, in very specific terms, a scrum master is supposed to be somebody who's very capable at scrum, is very, very knowledgeable at scrum framework, how to implement it, has had hands-on knowledge, has a lot of experience in dealing with the teams, is an active member of the scrum team, and coaches the team as well as product owner. This person's role is very important for team's performance. The role is very important for the team to start forming and actually start understanding these concepts of Scrum and imbibe those Scrum values. Without this role, it would be very hard for the team to start the journey. If they want to adopt a Scrum framework, definitely need an experienced Scrum master. Now, let me tell you about Agile coaches. Agile coaches are not just Scrum masters. Scrum is just one of the framework, but the coach's main focus is on lean, is on mindset, is on people, values, and principles. If you want to become an organization which is proud to be doing Agile and becoming Agile, being Agile, you need to have a coach to take you through that journey. The coach can help you in understanding what framework or multiple frameworks your organization needs, because each team, each program, each domain has a different need. So one size cannot fit all. While some teams are very, very good at doing Scrum, there may be another team doing Kanban and might be, very happy doing it and getting all the results. Some teams, specifically in infrastructure area, you're well off doing just lean. So a coach is someone who knows a lot of frameworks, not just Scrum, and is also able to understand what kind of framework needs to be adopted and sometimes adapted to the need of the organization. This person's main focus is on bringing the culture change, the mindset change, and imbibing the values and principles. Now, if I speak about a coach in an organization, a coach could work with multiple Scrum Masters. This person can be a coach to the Scrum Master as well, is a coach to leadership as well, is a coach to, in general, anyone who wants to learn more about Agile. So that's a way bigger role.
Yeah, and I would agree as you talk about both different roles, though both important for any organization that's being data-driven, the value of the agile coach, working with all those different types of personas within the organization, coaching them for change, because now organizations are looking for change, right? Especially as we now move to the cloud and for that speed. So that's definitely great. And for the folks, again, that don't know you, you wrote a great article that still resonates today. In 2016, you put together an article on agile adoption for the data warehouse and BI programs, right? And in that article, you mentioned the agile frameworks take either that business-driven approach or that data-driven approach, right? And I love that. But, you talked about also where within that agile approach, many of the data warehousing and BI solutions are taking more of that data-driven approach rather than the business-driven, which is more important. Can you elaborate on what the differences of these approaches and what is the overall value, right, from each, especially for companies that are starting these types of initiatives?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I love the difference between the two, because often people try to understand where they're coming from, and people who work in data would probably understand the or would appreciate the pros and cons of both. So when we talk about business-driven approach, it is more from business rules, more from business requirements, identifying the data needed to support business activities. They would be more focused on what kind of business logic they would need, and hence ask the teams to deliver that kind of reports or that kind of work packages. They could be building applications which are specifically for business needs. We had a lot of examples when we were working on this in one of the health company, where it was very driven from business thinking that this is what is going to be the next big thing. And hence they asked the product engineering team to work on those particular programs. As part of those programs, the product engineering team had a centralized data team, which I was part of, and we started collating the data and started, working on what their business rules would be satisfied and how would we accommodate those. Now that's very business-driven approach. On the contrary, if we talk about data-driven, it's totally different. It talks about strategic decisions which are made based on data analysis. For example, we ran a hackathon or an innovation labs kind of a thing where we gave everyone a bunch of data. We gave them databases, we gave them all sorts of data that you can think of, dummy data, and asked them what are some things that you can come up with as problem statement, not the solution, but problem statement, which was a very innovative thought at that time because we had this huge amount of data and we were just thinking that what people think should be done with it. There were prizes, of course, and we had top three initiatives which were recognized. So my initiative was number 2, which was based on the data that we were seeing. We actually started thinking, can we use this data to see someone who's recently had a surgery or a hospital admission? What is the probability for that person based on the person's geography, demographics, age, nationality, all of that? What is the probability of that person to get readmitted again? So that was a problem statement that we could think of just based on data. And that particular initiative got voted as number 2. They actually gave us a little bit of award.
Wow.
But
Okay.
that's
Love it.
data driven. Yeah, so my team and I, we sat there looking at data and we had a lot of thoughts, but that was one thought which resonated with all of us. Now that's data driven approach. Think that you have so much of data because everything is data right now. You tap anywhere and you get data in your iPhone, in your cameras, in TV, radio station, everywhere you have data. We are collating this data, but what exactly are we trying to look at it? This is also where data scientists are actually doing a lot of work. That approach, when presented to business, they liked it. They said, yes, this is definitely something that could be very handy. This is something that could be very useful to medical practitioners. So that became a thing and they got a funding to actually do that. So that is a clear-cut example of a business versus a data-driven approach.
Jyoti, that's great. I love that how you talk about both those different types of approaches and the value from the business-driven approach and the data-driven approach. Thank you so much for clarifying that.